Are you stuck wondering about your spot on the Missouri Section 8 waiting list? Well, you're in exactly the right place. Discover how to effortlessly track your progress and actually take control of your housing future, so definitely stay tuned. Welcome to this explainer, where we are going to completely demystify the complex and frankly, highly fragmented Section 8 housing system in Missouri. If you've ever felt like navigating housing assistance is kind of like trying to solve a giant puzzle in the dark, you are absolutely not alone. Today, we're turning the lights on.
To understand this, we first have to talk about the sheer scale of the system, which is honestly pretty staggering. There are 130 independent public housing authorities, or PHAs, operating right now in the state of Missouri. That makes the state's housing assistance network incredibly decentralized. You aren't just dealing with one big, unified state agency, you're dealing with one of 130 totally distinct local offices. And here's the kicker. Each single one has its own quirks, its own rules, and its own procedures.
So, here is our survival guide agenda for today. First, we'll map out Missouri's Section 8 maze. Second, we'll cover qualifying and applying. Third, tracking your waitlist status. Fourth, surviving policy-driven attrition. And finally, securing your housing voucher.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, Missouri Section 8 maze.
Let's start by looking at what this program actually does and why its specific structure creates such unique challenges for Missourians. So the crucial point to understand here is that the funding for the Housing Choice Voucher Program comes federally from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. The whole goal is to help very low-income families, the elderly, and folks with disabilities afford safe housing in the private market. However, while the dollars are federal, the actual vouchers, the applications, and the wait lists, those are managed by those 130 local agencies we just talked about.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core issue, as highlighted in a recent policy analysis: extreme decentralization. What this means for you is that the rules for applying, the way you wait in line, and the requirements to actually keep your spot change drastically the second you cross a county or city line. Literally, what works flawlessly in Kansas City might get your application thrown right in the trash in Springfield.
Which brings us nicely to Section 2, qualifying and applying. Let's explore exactly what it takes to get onto these highly coveted waitlists in the first place. First things first, you've got to meet the financial criteria. Take a look at Kansas City, for example. You must fall under strict income caps based on your family size just to even be considered. To be classified as very low income, which generally means making between 30% and 50% of the area median income, a single person in Kansas City can't make more than $39,000, while a family of 4 is capped at $55,700.
But income is really just the first hurdle you have to clear. Background checks are incredibly rigorous, and local policies are absolute. For example, agencies like the Springfield Housing Authority will immediately disqualify anyone who owes housing debt to any federally assisted program, has been evicted in bad standing, has a meth manufacturing conviction, or is required to be on a sex offender registry. No exceptions.
Furthermore, local administrative rules are unforgiving. Looking closely at the pre-application rules from Springfield, it explicitly states in bold letters that they will absolutely not accept faxed or emailed applications. You literally have to follow their exact submission rules. If you submit an incomplete form, they aren't going to hold it forever. They'll void it after 30 days, forcing you to start the whole incredibly long process over from scratch.
Now, let's move on to Section 3, tracking your waitlist status.
Once you successfully apply, the real waiting game begins. And this is where we tackle the massive challenge of tracking your waitlist status across these entirely different local systems. Depending on exactly where you apply, keeping tabs on your status can feel a bit like time traveling. If you apply in Kansas City, you might be checking a modern web app called Bob.ai that even texts you weekly updates. Super convenient, right? In St. Louis, you'll log into a Rentify web portal. But head over to Springfield and you're relying entirely on physical postal mail. And if you're dealing with the East Missouri Action Agency, or MEA, which covers multiple counties, you have to do direct manual check-ins over the telephone.
Because everything is so fragmented, simple geographic confusion happens all the time. Researchers actually found that many applicants in Northeast Missouri try to find their local housing authority online, and they mistakenly apply to web portals meant for St. Charles Parish, all the way down in Louisiana. So always double-check that you are actually applying in the right state.
And you're going to need to track this status for a very long time. In Jefferson City, for instance, the current wait for a voucher is at least 4 years. Just let that sink in for a second. You have to maintain your active status, track your position, and keep your contact info meticulously updated for half a decade just for the chance at housing.
This takes us directly to Section 4, Surviving Policy-Driven Attrition.
This completely decentralized system builds into the absolute biggest trap that applicants face: policy-driven attrition. Basically, this is how people accidentally lose their spot in line after waiting for years. Research on Missouri's system shows that because many local housing authorities simply don't have the funding or the staff to make follow-up phone calls or send you text messages, their reliance on the Postal Service causes highly vulnerable people to just drop off the list.
Looking again at Springfield's application packet, they put it as plainly as possible. They warn that it is entirely your responsibility to notify them of any changes to your mailing address, because if the post office returns any correspondence to the housing authority marked no forwarding address, you are immediately and permanently removed from the wait list.
This creates a really tragic four-step timeline that can literally erase years of waiting. Step 1. An applicant, who is already low income and possibly dealing with housing instability, moves to a new address or maybe a temporary shelter. Step 2. They forget to update the housing authority in writing, or perhaps they just call and the message gets lost in the shuffle. Step 3. The agency sends a vital status check letter through the mail and it bounces back. Step 4. They are permanently removed. All that time waiting, just gone, in an instant.
Let's look at the final leg of the journey in Section 5, Securing Your Housing Voucher.
Let's say you do everything right. You survive the wait and your name is finally called. Congratulations! But when you get that notification letter, a very strict deadline kicks in. You cannot wait to gather your paperwork. You must have birth certificates for every single household member, Social Security cards for everyone, state picture IDs for the adults, and certified proof of all your income and assets ready to go. If you fail to return all of these items by the deadline, your application gets denied.
Once you do submit those documents, you go through a final criminal and income screening. Pass that, and you'll be invited to a mandatory briefing. This is where you learn the rules of the program and are finally handed your voucher. But remember, and this is key, the voucher isn't an apartment, it's a ticket. It's then up to you to go out into the private market and find a participating landlord whose rental actually meets the housing authority's rent reasonableness and inspection standards.
As we wrap up this explainer, we really have to ask ourselves a tough question. When applying for a program meant to help our most vulnerable citizens afford basic shelter, should the applicant really bear the entire burden of navigating this 130-agency maze? It's a lot to ask. But until the system changes, staying proactive, highly organized, and informed is your best defense. Keep your records updated, know your local agency's specific rules, and please don't get up. This explainer is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal or financial advice. Contact your local housing authority or a legal advisor for personalized support. Thanks for joining me today, and keep learning.